Around 3 a.m., the rain stopped, and the new moon didn't provide enough light, but it was enough to make everything blurry. I returned to the 7th outpost after checking the guard posts. I leaned against a tree and opened a pack of dry rations, trying to distract myself. Then the two of us silently sneaked into the night, checking the mines and grenades in an area about 20 meters wide. I noticed something unusual, a shadow moving away from the enemy camp. We were ready to fight in the forest, the sounds of insects and the typical noises of the central highlands surrounding us. I heard a faint clicking sound, and the enemy, carrying a small flashlight and an AR-15 rifle, was heading towards the 7th outpost. I carefully moved forward, step by step, with the distance growing shorter. I wasn't ready to engage yet. The distance was closing in, 35 meters, 15 meters, 7 meters. I tugged at my comrade's sleeve and asked for permission to shoot. I stayed silent, my stomach churning with anticipation. At 16 meters, then 18 meters, he stopped. We both lay flat on the ground, ignoring the bites of yellow and fire ants. He looked around for a while but didn't notice us because we were well camouflaged. He then sat down to relieve himself. The smell of the Ruby Queen tobacco he was smoking made me restless. I hadn't had a smoke in over a day and longed for one. A little while later, he stood up, threw the cigarette butt aside and adjusted his pants. The butt fell directly onto my comrade's neck, but we endured the discomfort. After he returned to his camp, we signaled to each other. The rooster crowed, signaling that it was nearly 5 a.m. I gave the signal to my comrades. We moved out of the 50-meter circle of dust. My comrade smiled and immediately covered his nose. He lightly tapped my shoulder, but I didn't respond. The comrade right behind me grumbled quietly, asking why I hadn't let him give the enemy a knife strike when he could have. I laughed it off, saying that I'd let him take revenge later. I also felt frustrated but had to control myself. If anyone had disobeyed orders in that situation, I would have shot them first to set an example for the rest of the group. Just then, my comrade reported back, telling me that the enemy had moved towards the crossroads. We quickly adjusted our weapons and prepared to move out safely, confirming their location. At one point, they took cover behind trees and rocks, trying to stay hidden. After about an hour, they reached the crossroads. One of them stopped in the middle of the road, and the group quickly retreated into the forest. They stayed hidden for a while and then withdrew. I ordered A to cross the road and chase after them, while assigning a soldier to go down and disarm the mine on the roadside to avoid suspicion. We discovered a convoy crossing a tunnel. They stopped, then scattered. After a moment, two A-37 planes dove down and attacked the convoy, using the forest as cover. The anti-aircraft fire from the 37mm guns was intense. The planes continued their bombing, and one A-37 circled back as if to drop its last bomb. It was shot down and crashed into the mountainside, bursting into flames. Before long, the enemy disappeared into the jungle, running away. I heard the regretful voice of a deputy, as if he had missed the chance. My comrade patted my shoulder and said, "They've withdrawn, Commander. Didn't you see how great the anti-aircraft defense was? I forgot they are maneuvering behind the enemy, but this time it looks like they've noticed we've been tracking them. They're retreating fast, almost running." He had to fire to cover our movement. Earlier, when they huddled together and then scattered, it was clear they were coordinating the location of the convoy for the A-37s to strike. But our anti-aircraft fire was so effective that I felt we should remain cautious. We were quick to respond and stay hidden. Occasionally, I turned to check behind us, wondering if they planned to retreat and call in helicopters to extract them. If that was the case, we'd wait for them to board the helicopters and launch an attack with a 40mm grenade. I was close to the top of a hill near a large tree and could hear and see their movements clearly. One of them had a small device on his back and a medical bag with a red cross on it. It was clear he was a radio operator and medic. If we were to engage, he should be the first target. Losing him would disrupt their whole unit, but having a soldier do both jobs made him an easier target. They had been operating here for almost a week, but why were they retreating now? Had they run out of supplies? Or had they detected our presence and decided to pull back to preserve their forces? No matter the reason, they were going to pay. 2 trucks had burned earlier, and many of my comrades had fallen on this road. Now they were going to pay the price. I wanted them dead now, or at least their entire force eliminated. I thought maybe their password had been compromised or that they were calling for reinforcements. Whatever the case, I repeated the signal to withdraw. The enemy was clearly retreating. I could tell they were moving through a sparse forest, heading in the right direction. They were really pulling back, and our response needed to be quick. I ordered my team to close the encirclement and prepare for battle. We had weapons and firepower ready. We waited for the order to fire when they reached a relatively open area near a clearing. The place seemed ideal for hiding, but I knew from experience that it was too obvious. Helicopters would spot them easily from above. If they were to make a move, we'd take them out with precision, using everything we had. I carefully positioned myself behind a tree, observing their every move. They were clearly exhausted. I crouched behind a bush, watching closely as one of them leaned over, taking out a radio. I was only about 15 meters away and could see his back clearly. He was calling in coordinates, unaware of my presence. What is it? The coordinates as before. So this commando unit has chosen this landing zone many times. Now I observe clearly, and it seems strange. There are 2 Americans and 1 South Korean. I've fought with these commandos before, and sometimes I see the Nam Hat leader alongside the enemy's electronic team. Where are they? The signal officer called and threw the radio aside, took off his helmet, pulled his hair, and cried out loud like a child being scolded by his mother. One of the other men, with a rough beard, stopped, patted him on the shoulder, lit a cigarette, and started clearing the landmines. "Damn, soldiers, what are you doing?" he said. "I must have seen wrong this morning. They're not Viet Cong. If they are, we would have chased them down by now. Why cry? No need to be scared. I've been through this forest twice. I'm still alive." Then I realized that guy, the one who urinated on my head earlier, and the man smoking the cigarette, that's him. I recognized him. He was the one who did that. And I remembered the last time I was in the jungle. Those 2 others had tried to attack me, and I had to fight them off. They were probably special forces like those special information soldiers. They were cunning. I didn't believe it at first, but then I knew it had to be the Commandos. We fought in the jungle, and they were the ones who dared to fight back. It wasn't random. They wouldn't have done it if they weren't so well trained. Then the information officer continued to explain, "I've been through this area for a week now, but why are they retreating? Have they run out of supplies, or did they realize we were following them, so they retreated to preserve their force? Well, whatever. They're gonna pay now. Those 2 trucks were burned earlier, and so many of my comrades died on this road. Now it's your turn, you traitors." As I was pondering, I thought about the code word they used to withdraw, which is commonly used when calling for air support. I could tell they were pulling back, and it was true. The entire team began to move faster now, and I gave the order to tighten our encirclement. We positioned ourselves into a combat formation, close to the base of a large tree on the hillside, where we could observe them closely. I could see each of their movements very clearly, as they were all very exhausted. Their tired faces showed it. One of them wore a small radio on his back and had a medical kit attached. That's when I realized he was the signalman, the medic. If we were to engage, we would target him first. Losing the signalman and the medic would cripple their entire unit. They would be lost without them. I noticed that one of them was holding a small piece of paper and reading something. As he did, a photo fell out of his pocket. I picked it up and saw it was of a young woman, his girlfriend. "So this is your girlfriend?" I asked. He nodded and looked at me with a faint smile. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" The officer took the photo back and said, "When you get back, remember to let me know when you get married, and don't forget to invite me for the wedding." He then threw the photo back to the signalman. I looked at the photo and thought of Mo. I had many memories with her, but now I wondered, where is she now? Does she still remember me? Does she still hold any grudge against me? I still remember her eyes, filled with resentment, and to this day, I don't understand why I was so foolish. Back then, we used to bathe in the river, fishing and talking. I used to tease her and she would laugh, but now after everything, I wondered if I had missed my chance. He said, "Let's go." Then she jumped into the water, wading up to her chest. She threw the poor cat, which was sitting helplessly between her clothes, onto her chest. I stood frozen on the shore, watching her climb up and down several times by the pond. I reached out to help, but she waved my hand away. "I don't need it," she said. "Just leave it." Finally, she picked up the cat and walked away, not forgetting to add, "You're so cruel and foolish to be jealous of a cat." I stood there stunned, thinking about what had just happened. I couldn't stop wondering what was going on. After about a week, I went looking for her, but she kept avoiding me, turning off the path, carrying fertilizer, and avoiding me without saying anything. I didn't mention this again until the day I was leaving, saying goodbye to my mother and relatives. The unit was moving on, and it was a long journey. When we reached the area near the goat's path, I decided to leave the unit to look for her one last time. I looked around, but she was nowhere to be found. Then, just as I was about to step onto the road, I saw a figure in the distance running towards the edge of the field. I separated from the unit, running to meet her, and when she saw me, she waved and shouted, "You go first! I have food for you!" She handed me a bundle of rice wrapped in banana leaves and quickly stuffed a few handkerchiefs into my jacket pocket. "Eat this on the road. Take care and remember to come back to mother and sister. They're waiting for you." Then she turned and ran off before I could ask or answer anything. I stood there wondering, is she still angry with me now? My thoughts drifted as I prepared to continue the journey. Meanwhile, the signals from my squad leader came through, and I returned to my position, focusing on the mission ahead. We were moving swiftly and carefully, prepared for whatever would come. At that moment, I noticed a helicopter overhead, a signal for an incoming strike. As we prepared for the attack, I gave orders for the team to engage. It was clear now that our target was within range. I aimed at the enemy's communication officer and fired a rocket, hitting the helicopter with precise accuracy. The explosion was immediate, causing chaos among the enemy forces. We advanced, encountering heavy resistance, and engaged in a tense firefight. The enemy tried to regroup, but we pushed forward, maintaining our assault. After a fierce exchange, we managed to capture one of the survivors, a soldier from the South Korean army. He quickly surrendered, asking for mercy. We interrogated him, learning that he was part of a special forces team sent to sabotage our supply routes. He begged for his life, but the orders were clear. The mission had to be completed, no matter the cost. After the battle, we collected the dead and wounded. The loss of comrades was always painful, and it was a reminder of the brutal realities of war. Despite the hardships, I couldn't help but think about her, about the promise I had made, and the future that seemed uncertain. This was the price of war, and I couldn't help but wonder, when would the country finally be reunited? When would the war end?